Hey guys, I'm learning TFT. In this video, I'm going to talk about the top performing reroll comp in 1422. This comp has been performing really well and I've been doing pretty well with it. I got a first, a third, and a third. And I'm gonna talk about kind of the theory, best augments items for this comp, as well as go through a VOD review of this game that I played to kind of show you through example how to approach this comp. The other thing that I've been doing, this is, I believe, the highest rank I've ever gotten. I've been slowly accumulating all of my coaching notes for the last 2.5 years into a database where I am kind of, for example, Reroll. I have like a bunch of different notes on different topics that I'm aggregating all of them, which has helped me kind of formulate my thoughts and climb a lot more. And for next set, I am trying to think about how I can, whether it's just in individual videos attached to certain concepts, talk about them, or maybe create videos kind of like Mismatched Socks did early on in his YouTube channel. So I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna approach that yet. But doing that process has really helped me climb a good amount. So in this video, I'm going to talk about reroll, since this multi-line is so strong. And I'll talk about like kind of high level theory of reroll. You really want to spike on 3-2, since if you don't, you will probably bleed out in the late game. And you want to put as much pressure on your opponents that might be able to cap out higher than you in the late game. And by killing them off, you actually give yourself the highest upside to win the game. And usually you're going to lose out to 3-cost rerolls. So you really want to put a lot of pressure on them and preserve HP, so that even if you have to roll down to, let's say, 30, 20 gold or even lower to hit all your 2-stars, that at least puts you in a position to have a really strong stage 2, spike up, and then slowly bleed out in the late game. Which is why usually you're going to get like a bunch of top 4s like this, unless you can really cap out with, like, for example, a Xerath. With Arcana and like Camille too. That's kind of your win condition. And if you miss your window on when you're supposed to be strong, then most likely you're going to go bot 4. And so a lot of newer players who are trying to stay above 50 gold, when you're playing reroll, you really want to know when you're supposed to be strong and when you're supposed to spike. The other thing when it comes to augments is that if you're playing on an econ portal, or you already, let's say, picked an econ augment as your first augment, you typically don't want to do more than one econ augment, because even if you hit all your 3-stars, your board's not going to be able to compete and cap out high enough against other late game boards, 4-cost boards, fast 9 boards. Ideally, you could have 3 combat augments on an econ portal, and that's what's going to allow you to get like a top 3, top 2. But if you have 2 econ augments, or even an econ augment on an econ portal, you're just not going to be able to cap out as high. And the other thing is, sometimes there are situations where you might want to level higher than your target reroll odds. So for this Multistriker comp, you are trying to target 2-costs in the form of Kassadin and Akali. But let's say you are in a situation where you're streaking, and pushing to level 7 can actually help you preserve streak. Sometimes it's worth doing that, especially if you're already close. Let's say you have 7 copies of Kassadin and Akali, and you can just level and sit at level 7, and maybe you have a Multistriker emblem, and that would let you hit 7 Multistrikers, or leveling, you could play another really strong unit. That could be worth doing in order for you to preserve HP instead of aggressively rolling down on 6. That's a situation to look out for. The other thing to look out for is to consider how many opponents are playing the same cost reroll. Since if other players take those units out of the pool, it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to hit. And right now with multis, I don't see it played that often, but like RE reroll is very common. Sometimes there are Honey Mancy rerolls, like 2 Tanky or Kog'Maw, and Syndra reroll. So if there are a lot of people playing 2-cost reroll in your lobby, then it makes it a lot easier for you to hit. All right, so just sharing with you the stats briefly. This is GM Plus. You can see the top here. It's labeled Multistriker Kalista, but this is actually Reroll, Kassadin, and Akali for the most part. And you can also reroll Ashe and Jax, but it's usually not as strong, and I wouldn't recommend that unless you natural a bunch of them. And you can also do reroll Hecarim, like let's say if you get a Silvermere Dawn, which is his best item, you can, if you natural a bunch of Hecarims, you can also go for that. But the most consistent and stable option is to roll at 2 cost, and if you hit those early, you can go 7, and if you natural a bunch of Hecarims, try to roll for Hecarim 3. Otherwise, you can just go 8. Ideally, you want to get your 7 multi-strikers in, since that gives your units healing, and then you can roll for your Hecarim 3 at that level. You can see that this is average placement. Multi-striker reroll has the best average placement in the game right now at only a 0.66 pick rate, which is quite surprising. It's the top 4 share right now, and overall it's just a very strong, consistent comp. If you're looking to get your final climb in on this set, this is the line that I would recommend you playing the most often. As far as portals go, Champion Conference is the best by far, and I've talked about this in a previous video. You can see it gets almost half a placement improvement. And the reason for that is if you can get 2 multis in stage 1, if you high roll the Kassadin, or you already had a Kassadin in stage 1, you could get Kassadin pair or even an Akali pair. That's huge advantage. And then in stage 3, you can get a Hecarim. Stage 4, you can get a Kassadin, and then stage 5, you can get a Camille, which is really important because getting to 7 multi-striker has a big difference in your performance. You see 5 multi-striker here as a 5.2 versus 7 multi-striker as a 3.65. So that's why Champion Conference is so good. And then as far as, I'll first do augments. These are all S tier augments: keepers, stationary support, help is on the way, support items, basically anything that helps your Kassadin and Akali survivability. Caretaker's Ally is just if you happen to get Kassadin or Akali, that's like very easy top 4. Mentorship's good because you have your Hecarim that can give both your 2 costs boosted stats, and you can also put your what is it, Kalista. So you can actually move this Kalista to 2nd row, for example, and every time Kalista casts, Kalista girl, she'll actually move backwards and jump backwards. So you can actually 2nd row your Kalista in the late game, and that's not a positioning issue to be able to help your Hecarim. Band of Thieves, since usually you can itemize 3 carries, you can itemize Kassadin, Akali, and Hecarim in the mid game, which just gives you so much tempo and survivability. And this is probably one of the best comps to streak in stage 3, which will prevent you from getting a lot of bot 4s, especially 7th or 8ths. Like if you want consistent top 5s, top 6s, this comp, if you are able to roll down aggressively on stage 3-2 after your augment selection, very consistent. Silver Veil gives your team CC immunity, which is huge. You want that uptime for both your Kassadin and Akali. Row Rejuvenation is really good, giving your team healing. Combat Bandages for the same reason, giving your team healing. I'm not going to go over all of these, but I'll call out Fine Vintage because this gives you a lot of upside, but it's very much like a 1st or 8th strategy. And one other thing to note is that pretty much all of the S tier augments for this comp are combat augments. You'll see that the econ augments like Precise Planning, Silver Ticket, Misconnections, Pandora's Bench, Spoils of War, these Rolling for Days, these are all A tier. And the reason for that is these will help you top 4 more easily. But if you have 3 combat augments, or ideally you have at least 2 combat augments, it will give you more top 3, top 2 potential. Versus if you have a bunch of econ augments, you can hit, but even after you hit your 3 stars, you can still lose because you're like, what makes Kassadin 3 successful is you have 3 full items, he's 3 stars, and you have like 3 combat augments or a support item like stationary support, help is on the way. And so it's almost like you're giving Kassadin 3 like 5 or 6 items. That's how Kassadin 3 can win the game. So at the gold level, worth the wait with if you high roll the Ashe or the Jax and have a multi-start, that's very good. Big gains is particularly strong if you start with a Kassadin out of the box. Again, same thing with like keepers, mentorship. It's just anything that gives your multi-striker 3 stars more survivability is very good. Capricious Forge for the same way that Band of Thieves is good. You have so much tempo in that mid-game stage 3. Avenge the Fallen, you can basically sacrifice you can even front row like your Ashe to sacrifice and gives your Kassadin like an extra Titans. Basically any combat augments that is the essential equivalent of adding an item to your 3 stars is very strong. Not Today, extremely strong. Gives survivability and boosted attack speed. Sleight of Hand, similar to Band of Thieves, very good. Keepers, Combat Bandages. Inspiring Epitaph gives healing and attack speed. Press the Attack, very good. Just gives more burst. All That Shimmers is more so good for Ashe reroll if you get the attack speed one, or even Gold Collector are both solid. But for that to work, you basically need a Jax 2 and an Ashe 2 very early. Streak with that and generate gold. So this is very much a tempo-oriented play. If you're doing this with an Ashe 1, it's probably not going to work. Unleash the Beast with Hecarim is very strong. And you could basically carry Hecarim and Akali. I'll call out long distance pals here. I suspect this is primarily good if you have Titans on like both your Akali and Kassadin. So yeah. And then at the prismatic tier, Freaky Friday, worth the wait if you get a Kassadin or Akali, very good. Dark Alley gives you a Suspicious Trenchcoat, which when we look at the items here, we'll find that Suspicious Trenchcoat is one of Akali's best items. It's similar to, since Akali was buffed in this last patch, it's a little bit similar to Fiora with Suspicious Trenchcoat, where Akali can jump to your back line and it gives her survivability, where if she gets targeted, takes aggro, then she can split into 3 and all 3 of them will start attacking the back line and take them out. Lucky Gloves, for the same reason that we talked about. Immovable Objects gives survivability. Anger Issues is very good. You could just stack a lot of attack speed. What the Forge is pretty broken in the right artifact setup, and I'll talk about the best items and artifacts there. Giant and Mighty gives a lot more survivability in the form of HP. March of Progress is and Going Long are one of the few econ augments that make it to S tier. And it just can give you so much tempo, and that's why it's particularly good. So now going into the items. Titans is pretty much a must-have on Kassadin, which gives him all like the survivability and stats that Kassadin wants, plus a healing item. BT is better for shielding than like, let's say, Hodge, or like Gunblade actually does pretty well in the stats because Kassadin benefits from the AP, but the shielding is probably more important to give him survivability. QSS is really good because Kassadin just wants constant uptime to be able to cast, get the shield, and survive longer. The way you take down Kassadin is with CC, gets stunned, and then can't heal up, can't shield, and that's the way he dies. So usually you want Titans, BT, or some healing, plus like some survivability like QSS or Edge of Night, which allows him to make sure he can heal back up or not get stunned, which is also why Zhonya is very good. Nashers can be quite good too, like gives him attack speed, AP, and because that attack speed allows him to cast more frequently, gives him more shielding from his spell. And all of these artifacts are very good on Kassadin. With Akali, Akali really wants Edge of Night because she is jumping into backline. Once the main tank is taken out, whoever is like the backline enemy carry is targeting, then Akali will take aggro next. So you really want Edge of Night to add to her survivability. All of these are very good. You want Edge of Night, some type of healing, and then +1. Also very good with these artifacts, giving survivability. All right, so now we can jump into a game. Oh, let me turn off the game audio this time. I accidentally left that on last time. And then I'm also going to increase the playback speed. All right, so it's 3-cost champion. And I'm scouting to see what everybody else is playing. One thing that Demacian Raptor suggests is frontlining your units in stage 1 because it actually causes them to cast faster, which allows them to kill the creep faster and get the items and gold so that you can then decide what units to hold. So I'm scouting and I did notice that nobody is picking up multi-strikers or playing multi-strikers. And one of the key signals to play this comp is swords, because swords aren't very great in a lot of the AP comps. And sword is good with BT, Edge of Night, very good to play towards a multi-direction. I did notice one player there was playing angling multi-strikers. And here, none of these really stood out to me. And so from these options, I'm basically thinking trade sector as the econ augment could lean me in that multi-direction. And I'm scouting this guy, and he does potentially have that, but I just take trade sector and call it, and he's scouting me, especially since I have the Akali in shop now. And he took all that shimmers, which can be good with Ashe, but is also very good with Jinx reroll and Ezreal reroll. So at this point, it seems like I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to be contested. And so then it's more so about optimizing the line I'm playing. I don't mind taking some losses here since I don't have great item slams. So I'm not going to level and play for streak. Instead, I want to think about getting an Edge of Night, Titans. Titans is kind of what I'm thinking off of Carousel or BT. Since that Titans makes a huge difference in giving Kassadin like that extra survivability and stats that he needs. So I'm scouting the lobby and pretty confident now that I'm uncontested. There is an RE player here, which helps my 2-cost reroll. And I was also at this point considering holding on to Syndra outs, because if I get a tier off of Carousel, I could play Shojin Nashor. And I would have considered Ahri, but someone else was already leaning Ahri, so I eliminated that as an option. And here, like, if this Kassadin had an item component I wanted, I would have strongly leaned in that direction. The problem was I want a vest for Titans, but it's on a 1-cost. And so then I'm kind of thinking between the vest, 1-cost vest versus 2-cost cloak, which would give me BT. And I was also thinking Kassadin, and eventually I was just like, okay, I'll just take the 1-cost vest. And now I got the Syndra. If I had taken a tier, then I would have actually probably committed to Syndra. But at this point, since I got the vest, I'm like, all right, I'll just stick with Kassadin. So I'm gonna have a 4-loss streak, which is fine. Like, especially with trade sector, I'm not getting the value of my augment until 3-2, which is when I really want to be strong. Going back to what we were talking about earlier around knowing when you're strong. And here I want to lose on purpose. So I'm scouting. Everyone's level 5 or higher, so I'm not too concerned, but I'm just going to put in Ashe just to make sure I lose. So this guy's playing Galio Deja Vu reroll. So especially with Trade Sector plus 2 other reroll players at least, in like there's an RE player, a Galio player, I'm pretty confident that I'm gonna be able to hit my Kassadin in a reasonable time frame, which means that my second and third augments, I want to really make sure that they are combat augments. I use the remover. Most likely the Kassadin stay or the Titan stays on Kassadin, but I could put it on the Jax. So that's just a good habit to have, is to just use your remover before creep rounds now, since it's basically free. So here, this player had 1 cost 3-star and then used the polymorph to get 2-star 3 cost or 3-star, which takes even more 2 costs out of the pool. So now I'm thinking like this Kassadin should be the freest Kassadin 3 like ever. So here 2 healthy is just 2. Usually I think you want like 3+ of the units to make 2 healthy, or 3s a crowd is worth it. Long distance pals we saw was good, especially since I have Titans. That's like pretty good. So I want to keep that option open. But not today is just significantly stronger and makes my board much stronger right now. Long distance pals is probably better like on 4-2 after you have like 2 fully itemized 3-star like Akali 3-star Kassadin, but this is just going to be much stronger right now, and I already lost streaked all of the game so far, so I want to stabilize, so I'm going to pick the stronger augment right now. And then here I want to aggressively roll down, try to hit my Kassadin 2. And I do hit it, so then now I can just stop rolling because I should probably be strong enough. And here I'm going to slam the Sterax. I could have greeted an Edge of Night, but this guy has a Jinx too. And I just want to make sure I don't keep on bleeding out. So this goes back to what we talked about with knowing when you need to be strong. If you're playing 2-cost reroll, you need to streak stage 3 here. And that's why I slammed the item. And especially with removers now, you can be very liberal with slamming items. And I hit the Hecarim too. And positioning wise, you want to figure out how you can wrap on your opponents. So you don't want to be same side like a super tank. You want to be opposite side, a very strong tank. But if they have a weak tank on the same side as their carry, then you can put same side. And I sell the Jax, make 50. If we were playing on a portal with a lot of extra items, I would have considered keeping that Jax to go for Jax 3, but I know I'm going to be able to hit like my 3-stars pretty soon, given how many 2 costs are out of the pool. Plus I have Trade Sector. So I would rather itemize like Akali 3, Kassadin 3 than a Jax 3. And my goal is to... So the other thing about this comp is you need to hit your 3-stars, but then you need to push level 7, 8 to get 7 Multistriker in order for this board to really stabilize in stage 4 and not completely fall off a cliff in stage 5. So here component wise, ideally there would be a Kassadin, but there's no Kassadin. And I'm basically thinking sword because it leaves me open options for BT or Edge of Night combined. I was considering the 4-cost vest, but that leaves me a little bit fewer outs. I guess for both Edge of Night and Titans it would be good, but sword just gives me significantly more outs, and DB even could be solid on Akali. This player has Warrior Emblem, but he already slammed Rise items, so is playing towards Preserver Rise. And scouting the lobby looks pretty solid. I get the last mirror. The game kind of lags. Gives me another unit. And I am fortunate that it's a Kassadin. So you could say that I was definitely high rolling this game, but at the same time, because you have the 3-star cog, you have this RE player, you have the Deja Vu Galio player, there's so many 2 costs out of the pool that the roll efficiency for me to be able to hit my units is way more effective. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm going to roll down, hit my 3-star. Now I can think about starting to push levels. So again, I'm scouting. I want to be opposite side. Trying to fake out some of the opponents. And so here you could see I'm strong when I'm supposed to be strong in stage 3. And I should be able to streak most of stage 4 unless someone really high rolls and I get some bad maybe fight RNG. Or if someone creates a super tank that my Kassadin gets stuck on. So as far as items go now, I'm thinking about with this sword, I want to make like another Edge of Night BT, but I do want to also put in utility at some point in the form of anti-heal and shred. So here I can either slam Titans BT, which would be really good here, but I have this not today, and I suspect I'm strong enough now that I'm thinking I can greed by slamming Edge of Night, and then this cloak and bow, like the bow can be Shiv, Last Whisper, Titans, so like it could give me or red buff, so just super flexible. And then cloak can also give me even shroud or spark or BT. So I'm thinking because I'm strong right now, I can just greed the Edge of Night. But if I was like lower HP and I hadn't hit my Kassadin yet, I would probably slam BT Titans here. And also because I'm strong, I'm willing to buy this charm instead of going for a combat charm. So this fight here, if he had a 2-star Mordekaiser right in front of my Kassadin, 3 items and like a 3-star Galio there, I probably could have lost that fight. So I really want to make sure I'm positioned opposite side. So here, I think in the past I might have been baited by taking invested plus to try to hit like an Akali 3 and Hecarim 3. But going back to what we talked about, where if you already have an econ augment in the form of trade sector, I've already hit my 3-star. I'm full streaking since 3-2. I know I can keep being strong, so I want to pick a combat augment. And this does not help me do that. It would help me be able to push higher levels and find a Camille as early as possible so that I can get 7 multis online. So if I was like bleeding out with not very many options, I might consider this and hope I can get a top 6. But at this point in the game, I'm thinking I can play for like a top 2, top 3. So I want to find a good combat augment. Same thing with Freaky Friday. It's like very, very solid, but it's better in the early game. And this delayed value isn't great. I want to keep streak. And it doesn't, I already have 3 items on my Kassadin. It would be an upgrade on my items, but a combat augment to supplement my 3 items would be better than just getting this. So Bastion Crown doesn't really help. I assume I roll invested, and I get Multistriker Crown, which between these two, this will help me be able to hit 7 multis a lot earlier. And we saw in the stats earlier that 5 multis is like a 5-point something average, whereas 7 multis is like a 3-point something. So all I need is to find level to 8, find a Callista, and I'll be able to keep streaking here. So that's kind of the direction I'm leaning towards right now. Ideally, I could have made this decision earlier so I could level and roll earlier to find that Callista. But this didn't give me enough time, and I forget if I was penalized for that because I definitely didn't put the best board I could have put together here. I did get Arcana in, so but I also didn't Arcana the Hecarim here, which gives your units durability. And so here, because I didn't slam that BT Titans earlier, I got penalized. So this is probably, for sure, this was a Callista diff. And this is where if you know the augments better off of memory, I would have been able to make that decision quicker instead of deciding on whether I should take Freaky Friday. I still had 20 gold here, which would have been plenty gold. 20 gold is more than enough gold on average to find one copy of your desired forecast. Or even a Tom Kench would have been better. And putting the Arcana emblem or signifier on the Hecarim also might have been fight diff. So this specific round was very much a I was too slow in making this decision, which has a huge impact on my streak. And this player then is able to survive longer and probably has a pretty large impact on the outcome of the game. By the way, I didn't take the Shen there because I don't have enough items to itemize Shen. And so there's no point in getting a 3-star if you are not excessively rich and don't have enough items to itemize them. All right, so I'm looking for a component that will be able to utilize for Hecarim or utility. So I could slam QSS, I could do Titans would be really good. And I'm also thinking I need to start building some like Shred or Anti-Heal, especially since a lot of the other comps are starting to get their 3-star front lines online. And the way that Kassadin loses is he gets stuck on a very strong front line. And so you need to make sure you have that utility in place. And so that's why I'm thinking possibly a bow here for red buff. All right, take a sword. Okay, I'm prioritizing a third item for Hecarim first. Oh, okay, because I want BT. Right, so I want the 3 best items on Kassadin. I do find the Callista. Hodge is just not as good as BT because Kassadin wants that extra shield for survivability. And so I'm fine with moving the Hodge over here. And now with this bow, I can still make red buff or Shiv to be able to shred units. And I'm selling the extra Shens. I am holding on to both the Akali and the Hecarim. If I can somehow, because I still have a lot of rolls for trade sector, I may, and I'm gonna basically roll for charm as much as I can. So you can see there that the Poppy 3 player has a super tank here, right? With the Ahri. If I was same side here, this Ahri could burst down my Kassadin and my Kassadin could just get stuck right here on these 3 tanks. So I really want to make sure my Kassadin was opposite side. By the way, the other reason that Reroll has become so much more dominant in this specific patch is they decreased the cost per charm by 1 gold. So even this charm was like the cost 1 HP to gain 2 gold, which now costs 0 HP to gain 2 gold. So that's also another reason why Reroll has improved in strength significantly. Plus both Kassadin and Akali were buffed in this patch. And 2 Chrono was also buffed in the time to cast the heal. So if you're able, once you're able to get the Camille in, this comp also gets significantly better. All right, so itemize, I am thinking I can either do, I could do Last Whisper, but Kassadin's dealing most of my damage. I ideally would have had a static Shiv here with a tier, or I could do Spark, but then it's kind of like awkward how I'd position. I'd probably put the Shen like over here or over here next to the Kassadin. But I'm thinking I want to itemize the wow, why am I blanking on Rakan and Callista? I want to itemize the Callista. So I'm basically thinking red buff can be really good for both the burn value and the attack speed. Because once I get a Callista too, Callista becomes my 3rd carry. But it does leave me with a QSS that is also a little bit awkward to place. And now that I'm looking at this, I should be putting the QSS on Callista as well. I don't know why I was splitting items onto the Akali. But you can see here, I've ever since that loss to that Honey player, I've continued to streak. So that one loss because of just making too slow of a decision has already like lost me a significant amount of gold. I was fortunate to hit the Xerath here, which gives me more AD. So it's not that helpful with the Arcana. Like most of the Arcana benefit is durability, but Xerath does put some more DPS on my board. And you can see here that my Kassadin wraps around, which is why you want to put your Kassadin on the sides and put it opposite side, like their strongest tank, because you get that wrapping ability to really threaten the enemy carry. I hit the Callista too, and I'm basically every round as much as possible trying to roll for charms. And that's one of the benefits of Trade Sector is in stage 5, you usually have to roll once to be able to get access to your next charm. But you basically get that for free with Trade Sector. So in the past, Trade Sector was like not as good, but with charms in the late game, Trade Sector is extremely valuable. So here I have another Edge of Night, which is great. Gives me a third carry here that could hold Edge of Night, though probably should have put it on Callista. But now with Camille, I get the 2 Chrono in, and Camille's just going to be stronger than a 2-star Akali. And I still don't have Shred, so I bought the charm that gives my team Shred. And you want to put Callista same side as... if Callista's holding utility items like Burn or Shred, you want same side as your carries. And here you can see that I am getting stuck in front of these super tanks, and there's like these suspicious trench coats charm, which is very unfortunate. And my Kassadin is right in front of the enemy carry, so this most likely will be a loss. Ideally, I would have positioned on the opposite side here. And even with Edge of Night, drops aggro, but then after Ahri kills the other units, Kassadin takes aggro again. So next time I want to try to specifically scout this opponent and position opposite side. So here I'm thinking there were like 1 or 2 of those opponents that I might be able to beat. So if I can win, I get an extra 20 gold, which is huge. But most of the time, this is probably not worth buying. And I'm also not on the right side here, where this Gwen has Mana Zane and Zhonya, so I'm not going to be able to kill her, and she just bursts down my main carries. So if I had opposite side there, I might have had a better chance against this player. So that's 2 rounds in a row where like positioning difference made a huge difference. So you can see that it's extremely important how you think about positioning with this comp, because that's basically 3 rounds that I've lost. These 2, and then that 4-2 augment selection round, where if I had positioned better, made sure I used the Arcana correctly, these small things would have made a huge difference. So now I could take Spark or Shred, and I'm basically thinking Static Shiv, since my Kassadin is still dealing the most damage. And actually I could move this red buff over here too. And I was considering selling this Hecarim to buy this. Support animals and artifacts are both really good in this comp, so this is a huge find, huge high roll. But I'm also thinking I have enough HP that I might be able to greed locking this shop, buying this next round, and then still having an opportunity to be able to find a Hecarim 3. So this time I'm better positioned. I don't want to be in front of the enemy carry if there's a super tank, though this side, this is actually his strongest tank, and he has a Crown Guard, so I'm kind of wasting my damage on this Crown Guard. And I might have actually been able to get through on this side, so this positioning is probably also suboptimal. And I didn't position my Callista on the same side to burn the unit that Kassadin was attacking. So there's another loss because of positioning diff. And I didn't have charm. So that was definitely a charm diff. If I had a combat augment charm, I probably would have won this fight as well. But I'm basically trying to play for first. If I was just trying to play for top 4 in placements, I definitely would have sold these to buy this. So here I could take like Death's Defiance is very good, Infinity Force. Basically all 3 of these are good. But my Xerath is starting to get to the point. Multistriker allows Xerath to cast, like generate mana more with his attacks. And so Xerath's actually a legit carry right now. So I'm basically thinking Sniper's focus on Xerath can really boost the damage output of my team. And then here, Banshees is extremely strong. I only have 1 QSS here, though I kind of waste that. But it just really makes sure that my Kassadin can stay alive longer. So this goes back to giving your Kassadin like the equivalent of 5 items, where I have Not Today gives additional attack speed. So that's like having 1 additional item. And then Banshees gives attack speed and CC immunity. So it's like giving Kassadin 2 additional items. Zeke's would have been solid too. And again, I am on wrong side because I was spending too much time on that charm decision. But my team is strong enough to get through anyway. But ideally, I would have been opposite side there. And that was a much closer fight than it maybe needed to be. Plus, I didn't have my Callista burning. No, maybe Callista was burning the Wukong. I don't recall. So I take this charm because this is a really tanky team, and I want to make sure I'm opposite side this time of the super tank. So this positioning is much better. I'm not going to get targeted down. I'm not attacking this Crown Guard 3-star Rumble. And now we can see this fight works a lot better. I am playing Ghost, so it's still unclear in the regular matchup how strong I would have been. And from this item standpoint, I already have Shred. I want to maybe a Callista item. I could take this Even Shroud to do more AD damage, but it's the Hecarim and the Callista, which isn't dealing too much damage. But the really big spike here is the Pyro Emblem, because it would give Xerath a lot more attack speed and also executes. And that execute, because Xerath's hitting a bunch of different units, has huge value. Plus, a lot of the multi-strikers like Callista is like just doing chip damage to a lot of different units. So this Pyro Emblem is huge value. So now you can see Callista has become a pure utility, and then I get the Emperor. And I want to make sure I'm opposite side. And I guess that Jinx player was going to move back, and I guessed correctly here. And so now correct side, Callista is going to burn this Wukong, and my Xerath is opposite side units, so this Sniper's Focus gains a lot more value. I want another thing I didn't mention is you want your Tahm Kench on same side, 3rd from the left or right of the enemy main carry, because that's how Tahm Kench will CC the Jinx. And I'm also playing against, so you can see here, oh, Tahm Kench didn't CC the Jinx, but this is a pretty easy win. And then same thing with the second battle. So yeah, that was a pretty straightforward game. I didn't even hit Camille 2. I did high roll the Kassadin 3 pretty early. The Xerath was huge in capping out my board. And you could just see how strong this Kassadin 3 build is. The key thing is making sure you really play a strong stage 3. And if you're able to then hit early and then level, get your 7 multi-strikers online and have a cap out option in the form of Xerath, this is a very, very strong comp with high top 4 potential and high cap potential as well. So I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes throughout this game too. So if you noticed some suboptimal decisions, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.